Tel Aviv, a famous Sephardi synagogue. It's called the Beit Knesset Ohel Moed, or the Ohel Moed Synagogue. I believe it's, one of the largest Sephardic synagogues, if I'm not mistaken, especially in Israel. And it's based currently in Tel Aviv, it is. And a very, very famous one. We're going to explore the history within regards to it. I think it was one of the first synagogues that was actually established inside the city. And it's still used today as a place of Torah. The Sephardi Nusach, it's a Sephardi synagogue following the Spanish rite and liturgy of the places. I think many years it's been open and it's thrived, and it's been a popular, let's just say, spiritual center, and many people have tremendously benefited from the synagogue, without a doubt. Now much can be said within regards to it. I think first off, the location and size of the building was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, towered at the Rothschild Boulevard, if I'm not mistaken, and high building, let's just say, surrounding houses. And I think the synagogue today is surrounded by more office areas, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I think at one stage in time there was like a decline in the amount of people praying inside the synagogue, especially before the end of the 1960s. It was very, I think, larger numbers, if I'm not mistaken. But today it's an impressive synagogue, and it gets very busy, I think, all throughout the week, also on Shabbat. Let's explore the history of the building, and it's actually interesting. I think the wall itself of the synagogue was purchased at the beginning of the last century, and I think the man that purchased it was someone of the name Shalom Aaron Levi and Shlomo Yitzhak Cohen. I don't know so much about them, and I think they actually came, if I'm not mistaken, they were descendants of the Adoni Kehila. The Adoni Kehila was, I think, maybe connected to the Temani community, if I'm not mistaken, Yehudim Eden, if I'm just to give it its translation. I think it was a Jewish community, and they would originally come, I think, especially to the States, various different times at that point in time. Much can be said about them. Maybe we will speak about the community in of its own right at a later stage in an exclusive video. So that is very interesting. So, and then they would come originally to Eretz Israel, to when they were emigrating to Israel from Yemen. They bought plots of land, I believe, that was designated for the construction of a synagogue. They purchased them while they were still on port. But I think once they got to the land of Israel, they would travel, I think, from Egypt and various other places. It's interesting. At that point in time, it was Rabbi Ben Zion Meir Chai Uziel, who was a chief rabbi, if I'm not mistaken. This was been at the start of the 20th century, respectively. It was him. He was chief rabbi of Tel Aviv. Now let's speak a bit about the famous Rabbi Uziel. We've spoken about him on various occasions before. He happened to be the chief rabbi of mandatory Palestine between the years 1939 to 1948, and from Israel between 1948 to 1953. The Sephardi chief rabbi over there. I think he had various different positions all throughout the various different points of time. He was a member of the Jewish National Council, a Jewish agency. He had a huge part of. He was an advocate for strong relations with interfaith with other religions. He had a worldview that was very interesting, and really he was an advocate for secular evil also, and would try and incorporate science and knowledge within regards to Judaism. And his philosophy was to try unite people rather than to divide. I think he tried to break down the divisions that might have been between Yemenites, Ashkenazim, and Sephardim in general. I think there's a pasuk in Zechariah that was actually framed above his desk that said, he made love, truth, and peace the motto of his life. That's actually done the various different halakhic rulings in regards to Rabbi Uziel in of itself. He had many great positions. So one of these positions was also within regards to, he was integral at the time of this synagogue, I believe, at the formation time period, respectively. Okay, let's speak a bit more within regards to him. I think in the early 20s, I'm not sure, maybe he was chief rabbi of Tel Aviv at that stage in time. I have to double check that. And I think he was aware of this purchase that went on. I think they were in the Port Said on the way to Palestine, and he would congratulate them on buying the plots and persuaded them to build a suitable place for prayer for the growing Sephardi community in Tel Aviv at that point in time. I think it was Rav Ben Zion Meir Chai Uziel that would. And Mr. Levy and Mr. Cohen donated the plots of lands on which the synagogue was built. as well as a significant portion of the construction. I think that was actually in the year 1925, and I think Rabbi Uziel would actually help with in regards to supervising the work that was done, and I think there was he would actually report back and delegate and give reports to the donors on the progress of the construction at that stage in time. I think that maybe they were based in Egypt, I'm not too sure. Now it's actually interesting. Let's look about the history of the design of the synagogue. I think the first stone, if I'm not mistaken, was put in the year 1923, from the time of recording here, about 102 years ago. The Eben HaPnina, the Beit Knesset Gadol, Ohel, Moed. Very interesting. And I think that Adrichal, the architect that actually built the synagogue, was someone named Mr. Yosef Aram Berlin, who was a famous architect in Jerusalem, an outstanding one, if I'm not mistaken. And he would very much help with in regards to that and do various other things, I think, in Tel Aviv, especially at the earlier part of the, let's say, the 20th century. I think come with the year 1928 it was. More progress was being done. I think the synagogue was designed, and Jaffa property was registered actually in 1928, and I think it would take maybe 6 years of construction. I think there was a street called the Shadal Street, if I'm not mistaken. I have to double check. Maybe that was connected to the street name was actually named after the famous Rabbi Shmuel Luzzatto, very, very famous rabbi of his time. Let's just speak about him because it was actually in his street. Rabbi Shmuel David Luzzatto was, he lived between 1800 to 1865. He was a thinker, a philosopher, he was a poet, he was a man of language, let's just say. He was a very, very famous man of his time. This street was named after him. And I think he was an Italian-Austrian Jewish scholar. We spoke about him on various occasions before. He was Talmudist also. He would pass away, I believe, in Austria. He was actually born in Italy. And I think he authored many, many different Torah books, let's just say. I think he was a great nephew of the famous Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, one of the great rabbis of his time. He had a view on philosophy and wrote various different works, especially during his 50 years. I think many, many books in Hebrew, if I'm not mistaken, but that once again in Italian also. So that is for another class in of itself. Okay, so let's continue. So that was the street it was named after. I think it was inaugurated on the year 1935, and there was a stunning architectural, which was combined by Art Deco, at that point in time, geometric engineering, and the building was like a symbolism of structure. There was an interior space which was designed, let's just say, with the mystical concepts of the four quadrants of 7 arches. I think 4 columns, if I'm not mistaken, decorated its end with 11 curves, indicating the 11 planets on the sky. So above each of the columns was 7, I think, in the center of the temple. And I think the arches symbolize the 7 branches of the menorah, which we learn about in the Torah. The roof was a dome painted in the color of the sky and was built in a pattern of 15 steps towards this, symbolizing the 15 degrees that were in the temple, on which the singers, let's say, would be singing at that point in time. And the final stages of the construction, I think, was done in 1931. Yes, that's very interesting. The completion of the dome was donated by, I think, British brothers, Jewish merchants from London, if I'm not mistaken. And the dimensions of the synagogue itself was chosen according to the ratio between the height of the regular seating and the height of the dome ceiling, the golden ratio, let's just say, was built according to this, at the top of which was placed the Kabbalistic, I think, gifts. And talking about the Star of David, there was a Merkava symbol in the form of 3-dimensional in the building. A feeling, yes, it was a brilliant designed building, especially. Now, it's actually interesting that this building, I think, would serve at that point in time. Rabbi Chai Uziel was, I think, would very much help with in regards to overseeing it over there. And I think, especially at the start, it was during the British Mandate time, Rabbi Uziel would actually move his office over there to the building. And I think it was a place where there was Torah study and so on and so forth over there. That was used. I think also people from the army would come there, and the Lechi, also the Lochmei Charut Yisrael also would be connected to it. Now, it's actually interesting. There was many great rabbis from the Sephardi community that would actually come and daven there and be part of it, including the famous Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef was the chief rabbi between the years 1973 to 1983. I believe he actually prayed at the synagogue, interesting enough. And I think especially during the first 2 years of his election as a chief rabbi, and various other people. I think there were various city notables that will have their wedding over there. And I think one rabbi that was very much using it was Rabbi Chaim David Halevi, another famous rabbi, great thinker, chief rabbi of the Sephardi community and Rishon LeZion. He also was chief rabbi of Tel Aviv Yapo and was winner of various different prizes, especially the Rav Kook Prize. And he had various different important positions. Rav Halevi did. I think he passed away in the year 1998. He was about 74 years of age, and he was very much connected to much of this. And we actually did record a video about him, I think, on his Hilula at one stage in time. This was a couple of years back. Okay. Various different bar mitzvahs, weddings have been taking place there, various occasions in the Ohel Moed Synagogue. I think when it was based in Shadal. I think Eli Cohen one time, it's reported over, was a guest, I think, in the synagogue. I'm not too sure if, how he was connected to the synagogue of its own right. It says over here, Kamoken, Nahagu la'aroch b'makom iruah chatunot. It was a place where they did events. B'ruach haTkufah, ben hamitchatnim haya Eli Cohen. So I believe Eli Cohen, the famous spy of Israel, would actually have his wedding there, if I am not mistaken. So that is an interesting tidbit. I think the synagogue was a military rabbinate, was used over there. The chief of the IDF, I think, hosted visits over there. There was educational series there that was open to general public. As we said before, various different daily prayers were actually given over there. Now there's trustees of endowment. Since obviously the legal owners passed away at the Moed, I think there was a public endowment. The synagogue is considered obviously a synagogue. I think there's 7 trustees that's appointed to be responsible for the endowment, including Rabbi Shrim, Rabbi Eliyahu Kashtara, Rabbi Michael Cohen, and various others. So that's we have to point out. Also the cantors, the great chazanim of the synagogue itself. Now they employed permanent chazanim, would pass, obviously be the shliach zibur, especially on Shabbats and holidays. The first one was a man of name, I don't know if it was a rabbi or not, was cantor or chazan Yoshua Abrahamov. He was actually Bukharian. I think he was actually born, he was from the Bukharian neighborhood of Jerusalem, and he would be a teacher also. Among his most well-known students, obviously, was Chacham Ovadia Yosef, the rabbi mentioned about before, who would obviously become a chief rabbi later on of the land of Israel. So that's very interesting. So that was one of the people over there, Cantor Yehoshua Abrahamov. There was also Rabbi Mordechai. He was also Rabbi Abrahamov, or the Chazan Abrahamov, the Rabbi Mordechai Liao. Now Rabbi Uziel was the chief rabbi, obviously, who would go on to build the Ohel Moed synagogue, and he would be the person that brought the Chazan Yehoshua Abrahamov from Jerusalem to serve as a chief cantor in the synagogue. I think what's interesting, Rabbi Shmuel Toledano was also later appointed a minister of religious affairs, was appointed chief rabbi of Tel Aviv after Chacham Ovadia Yosef, after Rabbi Ovadia Yosef was, and he prayed at Ohel Moed synagogue throughout his tenure of being in Tel Aviv. And I think it's reported over that weddings would actually take place every single evening, and it's reported over that the Chazan Yehoshua Abrahamov would wear his white robe, officiating the weddings, if I'm not mistaken. I think nowadays there's, there was, we mentioned before that Eli Cohen, I think, was married there. Various other prominent people were. I think that also has to be pointed out. So famous people did get married inside the synagogue, various different famous insights. It says, Ben ha'chatnim shenisu beit knesset haya ameragel yidua Eli Cohen did, zichrono livracha. Kiyom ha'chazanim hem Harav Daniel Nachum and Harav Yosef Peretz. I think those two rabbis, Rav Daniel Nachum and Rabbi Yosef Peretz, may have had like strong roles over there. But Shnot Shishim v'Shivim, and the 60s and 70s years, until the 1980s. Chazim Beit Knesset Vayu Rav Nisim Zechuta. Someone named Rav Nisim Zechuta. I believe maybe he was. It says Hashem Yikom Damo, if I'm not mistaken. I have to double check that. Maybe I'll just have to check that. Also, Rabbi Yitzchak Cohen would have also been one. Now, various different great chazanim would actually come in these years. And what's interesting, obviously the importance of great chazanot, of a great singer, and great that really, let's just say, in of itself, would imbue people. The synagogue, I think Rabbi Kalifia Levi would walk around the synagogue wearing a special suit, and he put the inscription of the Ohel Moed, if I'm not mistaken, on the things. And they had rules, obviously, over there to maintain a quiet. They had to be quiet during prayer time period, and really took care of the synagogue in of itself. I think they had a lot of guest chazanim also, which we have to point out also. So that is very, very interesting. It's a famous synagogue of its time. We've mentioned about it on various occasions before. I think it's listed on the synagogues of Tel Aviv, Jaffa of today, respectively. This place is, and among one of the, let's say, without a doubt, one of the most famous synagogues it is in Israel, and that's played a huge role in Jewish history. So that we have to point out also. So if anyone's in Tel Aviv, I would recommend everyone to go visit if you can, and check it out. It's learn more about the famous, let's just say, synagogues of yesteryear. This one really is one that is spectacular, and I think it's still based on the Shadal Street, if I'm not mistaken, and it's pretty much open, I think, pretty much the whole week. So I'd recommend everyone to look into it more. Our friends, we're a community here. We're learning about not just great rabbis of yesteryear, we're trying to learn about the great yeshivot of yesteryear and the great synagogues. So obviously many of these places are still running and thriving, just like the synagogue, the Ohel Moed is, which we've spoken about here on this special edition over here. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please subscribe. At the moment, we are above 7,000 subscribers, which is a phenomenal achievement, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So that has to... Thanks for all the fantastic feedback, everyone. I'm getting a lot of good feedback every single day, and I really, really appreciate it. And let's grow together and learn more within regards to the synagogues. Now, we don't just do videos over here on great rabbis and great synagogues and yeshivot of yesteryear. What we also do on this channel is we have a great Jewish personality that gives and shares some wisdom over for Am Yisrael every single day. We have some brilliant wisdom, rabbi, a great Jewish personality. We do other things also on this channel. We will also record videos on daily tidbits of Daf Yomi, daily Talmud, let's just say a page a day. That's another thing that we try and concentrate on. Also, we'll speak about the Parshat Shavua, current Jewish events. Also, we like to speak about, and so on and so forth. So there's no community like ours, as they say, and we're trying to grow more and more, and make progress the whole time. So, I really appreciate all the fantastic feedback. And if you want any advice or anything, we do tours also all over Israel. So if you want to watch any of the videos of the various different parts of Israel, you can always check on the channel over here and see more. And wishing you all well. And Bezrat Hashem, just good things for Am Yisrael and for all of you. And a Shabbat Shalom in advance, because obviously it's going to be Shabbat Parshat Re'eh is coming up. Bezrat Hashem only tomorrow evening, so it's going to be Shabbat. So a Shabbat Shalom in advance, and thanks for taking time to watch the video, and please subscribe.